My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. That is Southwest Airlines. Stalking. Southwest Airlines is engaged in 24-hour criminal surveillance with the U.S. military, and they are stalking outside of anything that has to do with the operations that are legitimate at the Ontario International Airport, which actually does not actually exist. Ontario International Airport is engaged in criminal surveillance, but for purposes of making a clear distinction, for purposes of the judicial notice regarding what is ongoing, what is obvious in any court hearing, that Southwest Airlines is not conducting any takeoffs from the airport from Terminal 4 and hovering over the Ontario Senior Centre, the Ontario City Hall. This is also the case when they are doing so where flights are not even scheduled. This is also the case when they're engaging in what is hovering throughout the city, flying over the top of American citizens' heads as I'm documenting it, doing U-turns and flips. The entity is engaging in this. It is currently 5:33 a.m. Hold on. It is... let's see. I want to record the time. Yeah, 5:34 a.m. This is P.O.C. at the Ovid Family Community Library. And this is the entity that is monitoring, obsessing over my breathing pattern, obsessing over my heartbeat, obsessing over me, monitoring, studying, stalking while I am asleep, and engaging in what is resuming that same monitoring conduct. Monitoring using airplanes. Very expensive, mentally ill, deranged, and it speaks to the investment that the U.S. government has, that the people of the state have in gang stalking. And this is all for naught. They're wasting money because they're going to prison and they're going to mental institutions. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. You'll see the images I just took about 20 seconds earlier. This is psychopathic pacing. This is the criminal conduct of an entity that is stalking. This is the mentally ill feature that they're stalking in planes. And this is the fact that is accepted as true, i.e. judicial notice, which is relevant here, that this is not pursuant to any sort of takeoffs that the airports are maintaining. And this is pursuant to the criminal pattern of conduct at the Ontario International Airport, in addition to the commercial airline companies. This is targeted, and the entity is doing so pursuant to mental illness. You're also going to examine the entity had the fake moon over this same Ontario Senior Centre. Yesterday morning, I documented the sunset, and I also documented the sunrise at this same location. And this is where the entity is. This is, again, not sunlight. This is the crime scene where demons are engaged in criminal activity that is mentally ill. And this is the involuntary commitments that are resulting from the federal prosecution for gang stalking by the U.S. military, the U.S. government, in concert with the people of the state. Everybody in this apartment building, everybody inside of downtown Ontario luxury apartments, the City of Ontario employees, the entire entity, the law school. That's not a real law school. It's a Mickey Mouse law school, but nonetheless, it's a criminal. That is University of Laverne College of Law. Everybody inside of the parking garages where I've shown you criminal surveillance is underway, and the City of Ontario that is hovering in the sky space. This is the unintelligent system of criminal monitoring, which is mentally ill and criminal conduct that is treason. This is P.O.C. It is a matter of judicial notice. This is accepted as fact. There is no need to maintain expert witnesses, expert testimony to establish that there are no takeoffs from the terminals, meaning this has nothing to do with the legitimate operations of any airport, let alone the gang stalker that is the Ontario International Airport, which is engaging in surveillance even as they take off from the terminals, flight into the sky, based upon the specific environment that's proven underway while I'm at the Ontario International Airport. This is the P.O.C. There's no sunlight that's going to be touching over this while I'm showing you the fake sun at what is after 6 o'clock in the evening, which is what I documented yesterday. This is the engineered light, and that is criminal presence in the path. Doing so through aerial surveillance, stalking, flying over it. This is all criminal activity. And this is establishing that crime scene in order to identify and prosecute for criminal activity. And the P.O.C. is necessary in order to show that, in order to explain that, in order to also execute that which is justice, where a corrupt government is engaging in that which is foreign to those who are subject to it, and also that which the law shall recognize. Okay? This is the pattern of conduct. It is currently 6:03 a.m. at the Ovid Family Community Library. This is the P.O.C. This is P.O.C. In concert with the Downtown Ontario luxury apartments, the John Stewart Company Senior Citizen Apartment Complex. She's the one gang stalking at the Ontario Town Square, where they continue flight over the town square at no rise in elevation, engaging in surveillance, stalking me when I am at that venue. And she's doing so in the engineered light, monitoring. which is what they're doing in the evening when the same commercial airline companies are gang stalking in the engineer light, where the fake sun is present 9.5, 10 hours later. Okay, this is the P.O.C. and it is currently 6:12 a.m. where the entity is engaging in the pattern of conduct. This is the fake sun. And this is the exact same conduct that I'm documenting 12 hours from now. The fake sun, like I documented last night, is right here at this edge of the same building where the sun does not rise and set. This is a matter of judicial notice. This is the prosecution of the people of the state that are not coincidentally engaging in a pattern of conduct that is literally conducive to their engagement and what is targeting a specific person that is subject to that. And how is it specific even to me? Because the entity follows with his fake sun. That's why it's over me at the Upland Public Library for 6 hours, which is what I documented, which is also a matter of judicial notice. The sun that does not sit idle for 6 hours over one building. This sun that does not follow over the top of all of our heads. The totality of my evidence showing you the fake sun is a matter of establishing targeting in the first place, because the sun does not do what it is that I documented, not the natural environment and not the sun. And it's also not doing it all at the same time. In other words, you are all not in the natural environment subject to what it is I show on video. The fake sun moves as I move, as I'm walking, as I'm driving, as I'm aboard public transportation, moving as I move, taking the same street, moving in the direction that I go, even as I take the same path and change and vary the direction, showing you the ongoing idiosyncratic behavior of this object in the sky space. That is not the natural environment. That is also a matter of judicial notice. This is prosecuting the entity in both civil and criminal court, and the entity is replicating that pattern of conduct in concert with the people of the state. The engineer light is all over their apartment building because they are gang stalking, just like the people of the state demonstrated. And they are under, I want to be clear, the demon, the psychopath that's going to be committed based on threatening to call the gang stalkers who are the Ontario Police Department while she is stalking right here at this C Street turn circle at 5 p.m. because she is engaging in the criminal conduct and she is being documented, and her ongoing unfounded basis of hostility is speaking to knowledge that she's engaging in that which is unlawful. She's hostile about it, which is mentally ill as well. It's a threat to the public. She's reflective of the threat that the population serves. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 6:14 a.m. (6:18 a.m.) and this is as I switch websites. I go from one site to another. The entity is monitoring. That's the significance of the engineer light. That's the significance of not merely flying over at a higher elevation, but doing so at a lower elevation, because the noise and the light and the close presence is pursuant to monitoring. And as you analyze that behavior, it is psychopathic. It's not just criminal with regard to stalking. It's not just criminal with regard to the government being a stalker. It's mentally ill based on the pacing conduct, the psychopathic behavior of replicating that ongoing conduct over and over and over again with regard to every movement that you're making that's monitored and everything you're doing on your devices that are monitored. It's 6:18 a.m. while the entity is monitoring my internet activity on Google search. It's 6:19 a.m. This is P.O.C. at the Ovid Family Community Library. (6:22 a.m.) This is over a senior citizen complex, and as the video evidence shows, the senior citizens are fully engaged in the criminal pattern of conduct of monitoring. While they are doing so, they are engaged in the government's pattern of conduct, and the commercial airline companies shall be prosecuted. The company employees themselves, the companies that are sitting at the heads of these airline companies, they are being criminally prosecuted for this pattern of conduct, which is terrorism, and the formation of these companies, which is also creating an obligation to ensure that you are not engaging in and facilitating any government to engage in terrorizing American citizens like Delta Airlines is, like Southwest Airlines is, as United Airlines is, as Amazon Prime is, because you will not only be civilly criminal, you will be criminally prosecuted. All right? This is the pattern of conduct, and you shall not form any corporation in order to disguise the terrorist endeavors of any government regime. And that's what the commercial airline companies have engaged in, and they've maliciously done so. That's literally why the U.S. military are engaging in very obvious targeting, which is going to prosecute the commercial companies themselves. This is how you and why you have a gang stalking grocery store. It is the P.O.C. It is currently 6:23 a.m. This is why you have the people of the state that are serving in gang stalking with the commercial airline companies. They're stalking with peculiarized light while the commercial airline planes are engaging in the aerial surveillance aspect. That is a pattern of conduct. You are engaging in that pattern of conduct. You are being federally prosecuted in the criminal court. P.O.C. Remember, while the entity is engaged in psychopathic behavior of maintaining flight after flight after flight, it is that which the Ontario International Airport is being federally prosecuted for, not just the airlines. The airport is being shut down as a national security threat. And also remember, one aspect of the system is coexisting with the rest. The entity is surrounding where I'm located with light activity. They're doing so using City of Ontario vehicles. They're doing so using the surveillance, which is on the roads and the highways, the people of the state, literally traffic. They're doing so while they are engaging in surveillance and doing so. None of that is protected under the Constitution. It is all criminal, and you will literally be federally prosecuted, engaging in the conspiracy to murder while you are stalking in the path with your hazard lights on, while the entity is engaging in what is psychopathic pacing using planes and helicopters, as I've documented. This is the entity engaged in that, and it is open and clear public corruption. This is P.O.C. This is what you're recognizing. And this is what I document when I document around the vicinity about what the entity is doing. That's the whole significance of the fake sun in the first place. This is the P.O.C. That's another plane at 6:27 a.m. where the entity is already established because of the pattern of conduct. The entity has stalkers that are around, stalking with light activity. P.O.C. (6:28 a.m.) That's 60 seconds later. That's Southwest Airlines. Understand that this is the psychotic episodes that the mentally ill experience as I document them, and they become more triggered and they engage in more of the criminal activity with greater frequency. That's what this is. You are analyzing the behavior of the criminal, and this is speaking to the threat that is posed because it's the government, because the government is acting with commercial airline companies. It is a national security threat. This is removing these companies from existence. This is removing the Ontario International Airport from existence. This is the P.O.C. This is prosecuting the population under martial law as well. This is what is going to result from this documentation. Southwest Airlines is doing so pursuant to what is monitoring me. The entity goes from one plane, as I'm documented, every few minutes, and the more that I document, the more triggered that they are, the more evidence that I research online, the more planes are, it's directly commensurate with the entity that is triggered by my prosecuting them in the first place, which is very mentally deranged conduct. And any sane person understands that it's not stopping what a judge is doing in a courtroom. While the court hearing is underway, you are not engaging in that conduct before a judge in a courtroom. This is what the entity is doing while they're engaging in the mentally ill behavior in the forum, which is the facilitating venue where the entity is gang stalking as a population. All right, that is the City of Ontario that's very much engaged in under the fake sunrise, the ongoing amplified audible activity. This is what McCarthy is doing. This is what Airgas is doing. This is what CMAX is doing, stalking with light, activity, relevant positioning, in concert with the psychopaths. That's mentally ill behavior, and it is an appropriate title, while they are stalking with planes. This is the entity that is monitoring. This is the public nuisance pursuant to monitoring. This is the prosecution of the City of Ontario. It's P.O.C. It's currently 6:30 a.m. and they share in mental illness. They are sharing in that psychotic behavior together. They are all demons that are sharing in that hostility, and it is very mentally ill to try to cloak that, to try to disguise it as louder noise, as more frequent engagement in that conduct. And that's what the entity does, and it's also going to be analyzed with regard to a threat in civil and criminal court. P.O.C. It is currently 6:31 a.m. All right, what you will see captured in the images is the public corruption of the demon-possessed that are hired in Ontario to maintain criminal surveillance through the psychotic and that's the mentally ill pattern of engaging in what is abusing a position. This is using access to engage in criminal activity for which they will be committed, for which they will be subject to damages, for which the mayor is being prosecuted, for which they are sharing in the conspiracy to murder. License 1566902, which is stalking with light, where the fake sun is. That is what all of the entity is doing. That's not the sun that is still here 12 hours later, where they are engaging in the pattern of conduct using a dumpster truck, which is extraordinarily louder than the normal conduct of emptying the dumpsters. They are emptying the dumpsters here as a means of what is harassment. It is psychological torture. It's pursuant to federal stalking, and the entity is employed by the city of Ontario for that criminal purpose. And they are going to be subject to that federal prosecution. That's what you'll see reflected in the images. Remember, in Ontario, California, the same dumpsters are used to stalk me through the neighborhood as I'm in the Ontario parking. I'm leaving the Ovid Family Community Library actually days ago. I want to say it was 48 hours ago, and I'm walking to the Upland Public Library, and you will see the fake sun moving as I move, and you will see the evidence of stalkers using dumpster trucks who are both stalking. They're physically stalking. They're also stalking with light. That's gang stalking. Okay, gang stalking is government conduct, and you're conspiring my murder. You're exceeding stalking me, which is already a crime, and they are doing so on the crime scene. And this is all going toward the prosecution of Paul Leon. Moreover, Paul Leon is going to be prosecuted for funding terrorism as one that is budgeting in and providing resources for surveillance to be underway by the City of Ontario employees, which I've documented. The entity is engaging what is stalking me, as I also have on video, I believe during the 9 a.m. hour, which is 3 hours from now. And this is essentially across the street on the opposite side of Euclid Avenue, where I'm walking towards Stater Brothers, and they are stalking me in an alley during the 9 a.m. hour, which is 3 hours from now, meaning the fake sun, not the sun. 3 hours from now, Florida has a sun right now, 3 hours from now, and the fake sun is still over me. This is speaking to what is stalking, while the fake sun 3 hours from now is on the opposite side of the same street. And that's because I'm going in that direction, because when I stay here at 9:35, the same City of Ontario are laughing hysterically under a fake sun with which it will be used to have them committed upon criminally prosecuted for conspiring my murder with the U.S. military that provides evidence against them and their engagement in that conspiracy by stalking in planes and in helicopters, and doing so at a ridiculous rate. Also outside of what is published on the Ontario International website, another means of tracking, another means of speaking to the propriety of using judicial notice regarding what is clear stalking, clear targeting by the entity that is using commercial planes. But the entity is on video stalking under the fake sun and using what is emptying the garbage dumpsters throughout the city as the method of amplified audible activity. It's demonic, so meaning it's mentally ill, while the entity is engaging in the criminal pattern of conduct, which is satanic, the amplified level of what is in the task of emptying the garbage, which you use as a means of stalking in the path, in the specific environment, in that engineer light, pursuant to even what is being documented in order to enforce one's right against you, which is very predatory, very psychopathic, very malicious, and very maniacal. I'm documenting this inside of also my hotel rooms, where the City of Ontario, these very stalkers are engaging and targeting me inside of my hotel room in that specific environment, which is also going to be used to have them federally prosecuted and to prosecute Paul Leon, who's been funding terrorism and the sex offense that I'm subject to while I'm under surveillance in a private space such as my hotel room, which is what's happening at Economy N, while they are across the street at a gas station, and the sound of emptying the garbage is amplified inside of my hotel room. That which is occurring across the street is not and shall not, and it is ordinarily not, but it is in the engineer light, which is also inside of my hotel room, and under the fake sun, which is above my hotel room, where the stalkers are using what is the City of Ontario's tactic for criminal surveillance by demons who are engaging in what is public corruption. They are not emptying the garbage. They are stalking in the path, stalking with amplified noise, and stalking with light. They're doing so in concert with the U.S. military that's providing evidence that that's exactly what they're doing while they're stalking in the sky space using planes and helicopters, which is also established as a matter of evidence at Economy N. The entity is also doing so while I'm documenting, going from place to place, and the entity is stalking in that psychotic manner in dumpster trucks, where they're not merely able to do their job, empty the trash, they're engaging in what is gang stalking, which is speaking to the ongoing public corruption and the severe mental illness of the entity that is the City of Ontario that is to be shut down and defunded. Okay, no one will be receiving any paychecks. No one will be working for the city. The city is going out of business, and the city is being federally prosecuted. This is P.O.C. The environment is what dictates, and it's a matter of judicial notice that you're not engaged in actually what is protected under the Constitution by virtue of the presence of a fake sun. And that fake sun is also established by judicial notice. Everyone knows, and it is readily verifiable, that the sun is not going to be at the same building like I have it after 6 p.m. yesterday. That's 12 hours later. You are engaging in the criminal elements of monitoring, as I have shown you, which is the pattern of conduct. That is the city of Ontario conspiring by murder. And these are stalkers, murderers that wear uniforms, work for the municipality while they're engaging in the United States pattern of conduct. And you're going to be prosecuted and subject to federal prison for it. The city of Ontario employees have been engaged in systematic targeting, including criminal summoning, harassment, and kidnapping for years. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 6:40 a.m. This is relevant to what is also civil damages. They will be prosecuted, and the city of Ontario will be subject to damages compensating for the ongoing psychological torture. That is the purpose of stalking with amplified noise, impossible light activity under the fake sun with a population in concert with the U.S. military, while you are threatening that targeted individual, such as laughing hysterically, while you are conspicuously keeping them under surveillance, and doing so at a greater frequency as you are documented, as the evidence also shows. These predators stalk me more and more in the way in which I document. Okay, which is the demon-possessed pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:41 a.m. All right, it's currently 6:42 a.m. And the entity is indeed stalking. Doing so, let me go ahead. I'm capturing images of doing a deep dive and a U-turn, trying to dip behind the apartment buildings. This is what I've been documenting for years, by the way, when I'm speaking to the entity dipping behind building. I've described that before. And your visible image, this is, again, relevant to judicial notice. And this is exactly what is relevant regarding this application of judicial notice and this prosecution of the entity that is gang stalking. This is the entity that's engaging in that which is common knowledge. You're not headed to a destination taking off from an airport when you're engaging in what is a U-turn. The U-turn is occurring pursuant to where I'm located. It is coexisting with ongoing amplified audible activity, and it's occurring where I'm documenting the supernatural phenomenon. And the fact of a supernatural phenomenon, meaning the sunrise and a sunset at the Ovid Family Community Library, is also a matter of what is readily verifiable regarding what is not pursuant to the natural environment. The specific environment, as I have termed it, in other words, is a matter of judicial notice. That is, it is a fact that I have established with tangible evidence that can be accurately and quickly determined from reliable information that you can assess NASA itself. And you could spend the money and bring in one of those clowns that cannot deny what is the probative value of the evidence of the P.O.C. It is undeniable based on what NASA has represented about the government. I mean, well, they are actually, that's not a mistake, actually, what I just said. What NASA has represented about the government, in doing so unbeknownst to you, they are maintaining an illusion for the government while they are maintaining the illusion that they're going off to the moon that's over the senior center. Okay, while the moon that's over the Ovid Family Community Library at the same location where the fake sun is. When we are understanding what the sun is doing, it's in constant movement, meaning it's not going to be at the same building 12 hours from now. These are the type of facts that are speaking to what are a matter of judicial notice. This is where the entity is engaging in that which is not headed to a destination. That is a matter of what is also judicial notice. The fact that you're not headed to a destination and you are targeting by virtue of the miles far from the airport, assuming you're taking off from the airport. Where else are these commercial airline company planes coming from? because the entity's ongoing pattern is to suggest that it's the airport and that you're paranoid and that nothing is happening and you're not being targeted. And so you're coming from the airport and you're doing U-turns. While you're coming from the airport, you have flown miles away from the airport at a low elevation to just conduct a U-turn where I'm located and where that supernatural phenomenon is present. And a expert such as a NASA employee would be in the courtroom, the walls of the tribunal, and testifying to what the natural environment dictates about the sun. The entity is engaging in that which is speaking to what is targeting by virtue of the miles away that you are in these planes, not headed to a destination, by engaging in cartwheels and dipping behind buildings. This is actually chaotic and threatening conduct. That would be the case for passengers aboard those planes, and also for those that are living in the area where planes are dipping and hovering over where they live and making U-turns around the buildings that they live in. When you're looking at your window and you're seeing a Southwest airline plane fly by it, this is an entity that's engaging what is targeting by virtue of that. And the targeting is also established in the specific environment, as I have termed it. So with regard to what is necessarily accepted as a matter of judicial notice, the specific environment is speaking to that which is supernatural. And that is also readily identifiable, meaning easily verifiable, because even fifth graders know. And certainly so does the judge. With regard to what is determining that this is the environment where you are establishing targeting, especially where the entity is engaging in this behavior with these planes, the frequency of the planes, the scheduling of what the airport has published regarding flights, the flights that are scheduled, which I have taken screenshots of this morning as well. And the entity is engaging in this at 5:30 in the morning. There are not any flights scheduled. The flights are starting at 6:45 a.m. And the destination from Terminal 4 for Southwest Airlines is totally out of any sort of sky space where you are necessarily flying diagonally across miles, over 4 miles actually, to engage in then what is never, you're not rising in elevation and doing that. You're hovering over the senior center to engage in a U-turn and going back to Terminal 4. And the entities engaging what is also publishing, just giving you an example. This is why judicial notice is so instrumental with regard to what is the public investigation and the very ease with which a criminal conviction is accomplished by an American citizen, establishing that the U.S. government is targeting them in that environment. And they are doing so where the U.S. government is targeting, the U.S. government is the people of the state. Okay, the entities engaging in this, and that's what's relevant regarding this specific environment. It is a matter of judicial notice. And the entity that is targeting in planes and helicopters based on that judicial notice, this is establishing stalking. That is based upon the judicially noticed facts. Okay, the entity's doing that. It's the same thing with the impossible light activity. Standing under a light bulb does not create four shadows. It does not create an upright shadow. It does not cause your shadows to become dynamic and shoot across and move across. These are all the facts to be a matter of judicial notice, the specific environment. Where the sun is rising and setting, then you have the moon there as well. This is speaking to what is the supernatural phenomenon regarding the environment where the entity is engaging in what is the heightened audible noise of everything that's happening, the ongoing supernatural feature regarding the non-movement of the sun only moving when I move, speaking to targeting, and also the clear targeting as it's being documented, as I just captured in images, flying over in this location where no flights from the airport are taking off and arriving over the senior center, moreover doing U-turns and flips and cartwheels, and then the entity is also maintaining flights that are flying in a straight line west. You're not flying in a straight line west from the airport over the senior center. A straight line west from the airport is, first of all, one that would be completed with regard to the ongoing sharp increase in elevation when you're taking off from the airport. For example, Terminal 4. And a straight line is one that would be in alignment to Airport Drive. The more that when you're crossing over Holt Boulevard, when you're crossing over B Street, when you're crossing over C Street, when you're crossing over D Street, E, F, G Street, when you're crossing over to be at San Antonio, that is not a straight line like what the entity is doing when they are stalking me in the path, where the fake sun is in alignment to me in the path. This is the entity that is gang stalking using planes. And that is also very plain. It's a very plain, obvious. This is a matter of what is judicial notice, okay? This is the entity that's engaging in that, and this is the prosecution that is published on the internet, and this is where judges, that the federal judges that are witnessing this is a matter of what you are able to, even at a distance, remotely, render decisions on regarding the proof that the entity is targeting, the environment that they are targeting in, and that environment is proof of targeting as well. Never mind the fact that it is demonic, that demonic feature, which I have outlined for the benefit of the American people, for the benefit of the world. It is not because you need to study Satanism. It's because this is relevant to what is prosecuting under the law that which is mentally ill behavior. What the U.S. government is doing regarding what is demonic, regarding what is beyond stalking, it would be better if they were to just maintain flight, establish stalking, but for the entity to engage in that is for the entity to demonstrate severe mental instability upon being proven as a matter of judicial notice to be stalking in the first place. That is the entity that's engaging in that conduct. This is P.O.C. This is the same Southwest Airlines flying at a different elevation under the same fake sun that is present 12 hours later. This is the evidence as a matter of judicial notice that's going to prosecute Southwest Airlines, the company, and also the government that does not have any passengers aboard those planes. You're not headed to a destination, including while you're hovering, flying miles away from the airport. This is the entity that's engaging in that while they are doing the same thing using the same airlines. You have Southwest Airlines that's engaging in what is cartwheels, engaging in what is dipping behind buildings, flying around, wrapping around the apartment complex, and then flying over equally improper the senior citizen complex, the Ontario City Hall, the Ontario Senior Center, under what is the fake sun, which is what I'm taking a picture of right now. They're doing so in concert with the domestic terrorists of the city of Ontario that are stalking while they are going around in the relevant position, maintaining the elements of monitoring. That is the P.O.C. The entity is engaging in that, and this is relevant to not only a criminal prosecution, but the courts that you are commissioned with what is for the protection of the public. This is the involuntary commitments of those that are engaging in targeting, as the U.S. military is, and they are also doing so. They are demonstrating the needfulness of being committed while they are engaging in the criminal conduct. In the way in which I'm capturing images, the entity is engaging what is flight over the apartment building and also engaging in the cartwheels as well, doing a U-turn, flying up to where I'm positioned and doing a U-turn. None of this has anything to do with the legitimate operations of an airport, and it's all occurring under the fake sun that is here 12 hours later, and it is coexisting with what is criminal presence, which includes where the people of the state reside. This is how the state of California is engaging in criminal surveillance, and it is a matter of judicial notice. The environment, the targeting from the Ontario International Airport, proven from the distance, and the flight, the elevation, the ongoing nuisance by the planes. This is speaking to targeting, and the entity doing so. As I document, you will recognize the pattern of conduct as I document the frequency with which they are clearly stalking, and then stalking again and again and again and again and again is the evidence of targeting. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 6:53 a.m. All right. And this is relevant to what absolutely NASA is able to testify as an expert. Any rocket scientist, any astronaut, any person studies astronomy, studies the environment as an expert witness on the environment. But you're talking about any sort of science teacher. You're talking about a fifth grader with rudimentary understanding of the environment. And the entity is being prosecuted regardless of what direction that they are flying. And that's the point. The entity is maintaining this, and with regard to what is zoning laws, which also are relevant to the judicial notice. Zoning laws and the agreement of the Ontario International Airport and the City of Ontario, also relevant to what is judicial notice. This is Delta Airlines. And it is 6:53 a.m. and I am capturing images of that. And the entity has, again, another plane at a higher elevation. This is, again, the entity maintaining air traffic with regard to surveillance, criminal surveillance. And it is the P.O.C. They are hovering over a senior citizen complex. Okay? They're doing so in concert with the people. So let me show you what is a gang stalker openly, conspicuously, that is, stalking you. And they're going to prison, and they will be committed with this. And this is entirely unlawful. And they're doing so in concert with the U.S. military under the fake sun that is present 12 hours later at the same location. The use of the device, having it on speakerphone, walking in engineer light, is the criminal activity. Okay, this is what the entity is doing while I am documenting the pattern of conduct at 6 o'clock in the evening, and it will literally be a matter of a cinematic prosecution because I have more than judicial notice because the entity is doing this with regard to Southwest Airlines, Delta Airlines, Amazon Prime Air, all the airlines, while this fake sun is on this side of the building and they're stalking in the same manner, flying over the same senior citizen complex. There is no position that the U.S. military can fly that will make what is proven stalking and mentally ill psychotic behavior combined pursuant to criminal monitoring, which is demonic, which is mentally ill under the law. It will never normalize that. Okay, so this is the P.O.C. and this is the entity that shall be subject to what I am showing with regard to the pattern of conduct and how the entity is executing it. Severe, not just criminal, severely mentally ill. And this is even established through what is the judicial notice. You're looking at the excessive conduct. What it is, the focus is with regard to the entity that intends to psychologically torture another person. But this is not effective on me. I'm documenting it. It's for you to see the excessive nature of it, speaking to that obsessive, that delusional, that maniacal feature regarding that which is also obviously improper and unlawful pursuant to stalking. This is exceeding stalking. This is that psychopathic pacing. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 6:55 a.m. and this is the criminal activity and it is relevant to judicial notice. So I want to make sure that this doctrine is well understood because this is relevant to prosecuting, and federal judges are at a distance capable of making competent rulings while you are witnessing the evidence, and the entity has been engaging in this forever. So I document, I do this for a reason. I document it, and it is clearly a pattern of conduct. Not only the criminal activity, but the necessarily mentally deranged state of those engaging in the criminal activity. I document it day in and day out. I document it for a term of years. So you are certain that there is no anomaly, there is no exception with regard to what is in fact a pattern of conduct. And the entities engaging in this, where you are also aware of, you don't have to be a medical professional to recognize that there is a necessarily an inherent mental dysfunction with regard to that which is exceeding mere targeting and stalking me. This exceeds that. The numerosity, the frequency, which you are also, when you're paying attention, you are recognizing that it increases as the evidence is captured underway. You're stalking me by helicopter at 903 San Antonio Avenue, flying over my head by helicopter, and then commences psychopathic pacing in the sky space as I begin capturing video of Delta Airlines that's stalking here at the senior center. And you are not taking off when you're miles away at at 903 North San Antonio Avenue. You are in fact targeting me because the fake sun is still over me at that point in the day, which is after 4 p.m., 5 p.m. This is the entity that's engaged in that. This is the mentally ill feature of a criminal pattern of conduct. And you do not have to be a medical professional in order to recognize that threshold which applies. This is the criminal conduct, and this is the investigation, and this is the prosecution that is establishing that federal group stalking monitoring, i.e. gang stalking, state surveillance by the U.S. government is mentally ill, mentally deranged conduct and behavior and criminal activity that is necessarily, it is necessitating what are mental examinations based on that threat posed by the government that's doing it with the population, that population that's doing it abroad, throughout the country, which you know because of what is the judicially noticed fact that the sun is not here and also in Florida. But you know in Florida, they're looking at a sun. That's the supernatural aspect of the pattern of conduct. The entity is going to be subject to what are involuntary commitments based on the inevitable conclusions regarding what is absolutely wrong with, and to be made a matter of what is a professional medical diagnosis regarding the obsessive and maniacal personality disorders of those that are engaging in the pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. That is amplified plane activity of the same entity that is using a smaller plane accomplishing the same criminal elements of monitoring. The elements of monitoring are speaking to what is the mentally ill behavioral pattern, that which is obsessive beyond stalking. Stalking is already the crime. Stalking is already born of obsession. Remember, the entity is engaged in what is doing it over and 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 over again. Okay, that's the entity that is severely mentally ill, and that's to be a matter of what is a diagnosis. Okay, this is the P.O.C., and this does not require federal judges to have some sort of training in the medical field in order to make that threshold decision. Gang stalking at its outset is that which is mentally deranged behavior, and to engage in it, you are one whose mindset is put at the center of that controversy, and you will be subject to what is mental examinations upon a criminal prosecution for the crime. That is state action. The government's criminal conduct is mentally ill behavior that is shared by the population, and it is necessitating martial law. This is P.O.C, and this is also in-depth analysis regarding what is the application of judicial notice, which is prosecuting the government as it's published on the internet. All right, this is P.O.C. That is the entity that is, again, where's the cartwheel occurring? As I am moving this direction, which is east, the cartwheel is occurring over here. The entity is not flying west beyond me and doing the cartwheel in this direction. This is relative positioning, in other words, is what it's called. Very mentally ill, obsessive behavior is what that is. There is no terminal from the airport that results in what is a plane hovering over the Ontario City Hall. You're also not headed to a destination as you make a U-turn, which you can see as the entity is veering while flying over the Ontario City Hall. You will also be prosecuted as the mayor where that criminal activity is occurring over the venue where the mayor and the Ontario City Council are engaging in what is supposedly handling the business of the people. You are in that specific environment. You are a part of that pattern of conduct, and it is not based on business hours. The Ontario City Hall is a means of criminal activity, while the people of the state are in position right now, by the way, but the entity is also doing so while the City Hall is filled with, including while Paul Leon is inside of that building, engaging in the 24-hour criminal surveillance system. Okay, this is P.O.C. The mayor is being prosecuted while the people of the state are sitting outside of that building to maintain surveillance. All right, and this is the mentally ill behavior, the ongoing obsession, which is not illustrated through what is somebody on their phone not talking to you who you've never seen before. It's maintenance through what is the 12-hour enduring fake sun for the psychopathic pacing of the planes in a clearly inappropriate location, for the ongoing amplified audible activity, which is creating what is a public nuisance. Also, while the entities engaging in this, while they are aware, they are monitoring the evidence based on the nature of the crime. Okay, the entity is keeping the evidence under surveillance, and that is also relevant to the triggered behaviors such as the heightened frequency of plane activity, which have no business over the City Hall, the Senior Center, the Senior Citizen Apartment Complex. This is the P.O.C. Alrighty, this is the podcast and the images of what it is that I'm narrating, and as I'm also speaking in depth about the application of judicial notice. And this is indeed the federal prosecution of the U.S. government about which is occurring. You're witnessing it on social media. This is P.O.C. It is 7:13 a.m. That's the entity that's maintaining amplified audible activity. This is a public nuisance. The public nuisance conduct is used to prosecute for targeting. Okay. The entity that's engaging in what is obviously conducting a takeoff is not creating any of this noise. The takeoff is where that noise is existing. The entity is engaging what is targeting, flying miles away from the airport, and then replicating that which would occur when you are taking off. The entity is doing that while they're repeating that over and over and over again. This is the mentally ill behavior of the stalker that's engaged in monitoring, which will be used to have the entity that's prosecuted as stalking doing so in furtherance of murder while they engage in the unabated program of psychological torture, which is mentally ill behavior. The entity that is mentally ill is psychologically torturing another person that they have conspired to murder. And this is a shared behavior. This is a shared system. This is a shared targeting gang stalking system that the government is doing in concert with the people of the state, and this population shall be subject to martial law for it. And I have, as you heard, I'm documenting it again right now because the entity is maintaining that, but this is relevant. This is putting succinctly what it is that I've already spoken about at length. And that is the fact that this is a matter of judicial notice regarding surrounding the entity with the evidence that they're stalkers. They're stalkers under a fake sun. They're stalkers in engineered light. That is the environment that is conducive to monitoring, which is demonic, which is mentally ill. And that's why the environment is so twisted. That is demonic, speaking to the mental illness that you are even deriving from the environment where they are stalking. Okay, this is the P.O.C. It's currently 7:15 a.m. The people of the state are stalking with the entity that's amplifying plane activity. It's 7:20 a.m. This is establishing a pattern of conduct. However, the entity is engaging in what is stalking in the sky space is also relevant. So the entity that is using smaller military aircrafts and commercial airline companies are sharing in the exact same criminal pattern of conduct. It is just that commercial airline companies shall be criminally and civilly responsible under the law. It is the same criminal activity. And while the entity engages in stalking and engaging in psychopathic behaviors such as pacing in the sky space by helicopter, as Delta Airlines is stalking, engaging in the same criminal pattern of conduct, and Delta Airlines is guilty of that when the U.S. military is flying that plane, that's the same criminal activity. P.O.C. 7:21 a.m., the identical pattern of conduct. A commercial plane. And also, this is just a matter of common sense. Engaging in more criminal activity does not then rebut the evidence that it is not criminal activity. That does not present any sort of rebuttal. The entity provides evidence and confirmation that it is indeed monitoring. All right, this is the entity that engaged in what is a U-turn right here. And I'll show you pictures of that. I'm capturing it right now. They're flying, dipping behind. That is, you're flying over the Ontario City Hall parking lot, and then you're doing a U-turn over the Metro 102 apartments, and the people of the state are stalking in the path, riding their bike, crossing path, pacing to the sitting on the benches, and the entities engaging in what is gang stalking together. All right, this represents presence. They need bodies on the ground, moving around in the engineer light, monitoring. This is the mentally ill behavior. All right, the entity engages in the same conduct, like I stated, the same exact criminal activity, whether you are using a commercial airline company plane or whether you are using a military jet, whether you are using a helicopter of the Ontario Police Department. The Ontario Police Department is being federally prosecuted because the Ontario Police are targeting me with the U.S. military. While the U.S. military is in the city of Ontario, California, and Mike Lorenz is not protecting me, Mike Lorenz is targeting me with the U.S. military on behalf of that U.S. military. In fact, engaging in surveillance and exploiting a position that he has while he's actually engaging in what is targeting, not law enforcement, which is going to put Mike Lorenz in prison. All right, that's the P.O.C. It is currently 7:23 a.m., where the entity is always engaging in what is incriminating. What the entity is always doing, which is engaging in what is nothing other than confirmation regarding criminal conduct at the outset, that it can never render as anything other than that when they are merely replicating the same illegal, inappropriate, and mentally deranged conduct in the non-changing environment. It's the P.O.C. This is the entity that is trapped in its own cycle. And while it's engaging in that, the only sort of release by American citizens who are entitled to it as a matter of justice, but also the relief that the mentally ill require. This is mental institutions that are going to serve to remedy what is the ongoing unhealthy cycle of targeting another person when you are tormented with the mental illness of those that are exhibiting it while they're gang stalking another person. It is currently 7:23 a.m. This is P.O.C. Let's play. This is a male, a demon. 9 Larry George Jerry 304. He's engaging in sexual assault and battery with the United States Postal Service, vehicle 334-0007. And what this demon is doing of USPS is engaging in the psychopathic pacing and molestation. So they are going into the bathroom under the fake sun at the Ovid Library. The homosexual female is documented engaging in sexual assault and battery. She's a demon. Impossible light while she is wearing shorts, walking back to the vehicle. They abandon the vehicle to go into the library to gang stalk me under the fake sun. They're doing so while leaving the vehicle without any hazard lights on. As I begin documenting these sex offenders, then he turns on the light activity, the hazard lights, and the demons are pacing at the C Street turn circle, engaging in sexual assault and battery, vehicle after vehicle after vehicle. Both of these two terrorists of the USPS, they're subject to federal prison. They've engaged in documented sexual acts of violence with the entity before. Both the lesbian that goes into the women's restroom, I documented her, and her mental illness is on the record while she goes into the first level bathroom of the Ovid Family Community Library. I also documented this male gang stalking and doing so under the fake sun as well. He turns on the hazard lights as an act of aggression. They went into the bathroom originally, no hazard lights on, and now he's sitting in the vehicle and maintaining that light activity while they engage in what is documented acts of retaliation for being documented. Those are the sex offenders of the federal government, the United States Postal Service. Okay? That's the P.O.C., and that is Ovid Family Community Library that's engaging in sexual assault and battery. Okay? The entities engaging in this and the third parties that are sharing in sexual assault and battery with the United States Postal Service that are going to be subject, I want to be clear, the female and the male, they're exhibiting mental illness and they will be committed with, this is the evidence whereby gang stalkers are being committed. License plate that's engaging in sexual assault and battery with the United States Postal Service. License 7 Jerry Larry Zebra 748. That is the silver Altima Nissan that you'll see at 10:05 a.m. at the C Street turn circle, pacing with a old white male on a bicycle. They're pacing under the fake sun. They're monitoring. These are the demons that are engaged in the psychopathic pacing that I published with regard to what the entity is doing in the immediate sky space. It's mentally ill behavior shared by the entity. The entity is engaging in this with license plate 8 Uncle Edward David 716. That's the Chevy, an SUV. Driving their vehicles will never create what you already know is also a fact. The impulsive light activity you see inside of the Fontana Lewis Library, they're touching my person with that. The impulsive light activity you see on the Omnitrans bus, they're touching my person with that. The impulsive light activity that you see outside while I'm walking outside on Euclid Avenue coming from the Upland Public Library at the Argo Optometry on the outside of that building, they're touching my person with that, okay? The impulsive light activity that you are witnessing while I am subject to the entity that is crossing path and light is dragging across the ground, that's what the United States Postal Service is going out of its way as hostile. Federal actors, that's the government as well. The USPS workers, they take an oath. And they're engaged in what is violating that oath. And they're also engaged in what is relevant. Federal law with regard to the delivery of mail. Those of us that are subject to federal laws such as mail fraud, that would also be laws that apply to them. The United States Postal Service has engaged in what is withholding mail that belongs to me. And they did so while the entity stole my property. This is what Jason Fields and Tracy Banks were able to engage in. The United States Postal Service engagement in the criminal pattern of conduct, as my evidence shows, is evidence against this entity that targeted me with the gang stalking court, that entertained vagina monitors, predators, demons posing as Christians like Ruth Hooper and Gregory Hooper, who are serving Satan while perjuring my character and sitting in a courtroom. And they're doing so while the United States Postal Service, a documented terrorist, is engaged in what is refraining from giving me my mail, knowing who I am specifically, which is proven through targeting me under the fake sun and molesting me with impossible light, and even going to the extent of monitoring my vagina in the bathroom, which is what this homosexual female is doing at the Ovid Family Community Library, where she's under this fake sun. This is what she's doing in the middle of the afternoon inside of that library. The entities engaging in this evidence is used to speak to the targeting that the United States Postal Service has engaged in. It's relevant to the exact same type of federal charges that any American citizen will be subject to, engaging in mail fraud, engaging in any sort of tampering with the mail where you're subject to 10 to 15, 20 years. Those are serious federal charges that the United States Postal Service is engaging in while they're gang stalking as well, refraining from delivering my mail to me, giving me my mail, while they're engaging in gang stalking and at the same time with the people of the state who sat in courtrooms while I did not get my mail pertaining to court hearings that I have a due process right to have knowledge of and participate in, and also regarding what is the alteration of my liberty rights concerning property that belongs to me. And I did not get any notice because of the gang stalkers of the United States Postal Service. That's gang stalking me. 9 Xavier Sam Nancy 455. Pacing. All right, these are the mentally ill that engaged in serious federal crimes, and they're going to sit in mental institutions, federal prison for it. And it includes those that are a part of the United States Postal Service who are equally mentally ill. Understand, it's the same entity. The people of the state that wear police uniforms, the people of the state that wear scrubs, the people of the state that work in whatever field that they're in, the people of the state that wear the uniforms of the United States Postal Service. It's the same mentally ill population. And I'm going to prosecute them. This is that prosecution, and you're going to prison. You're stalking me with light like USPS is. You're being committed. All right. And these are repeat offenders. So they're very much familiar with my vagina and specifically targeting me with knowledge that I'm here, hostile because of what it is that I'm publishing on the internet, which doesn't help you. You're going to be committed. License CR96 Henry 07. That's a paper plate on a white BMW. And they're engaging in what is also that pattern of conduct under the fake sun. That is not in Upland, California. Remember what I'm documenting on video at 9:53 in the morning. That's how the fake sun is over me for 6 hours as I capture then at what is 3:50 after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, over 6 hours, yeah. And the entity is maintaining that fake sun over me. Don't forget that, while USPS and the people of the state are already prosecuted by virtue of that judicially noticed fact. And based on these facts and you being prosecuted, you're being committed. When you get committed, you're not keeping custody of your children. When you're getting committed, you will be subject to what is treatment and public information regarding what you don't have any privacy concerning, because your mental illness is a matter of how you are engaging in terrorizing another person. Your criminal activity is mentally ill, all right? You're looking at pacing while the demons walk to the entrance of the Ovid Family Community Library, and they do so while USPS is doing the exact same thing, turning on their hazard lights, carrying a book in your hand, and walking to the gang stalking entrance of Ovid Family Community Library under the fake sun is absolutely no defense. It's speaking to the gang stalkers that are Ovid Family Community Library, and it is mutually exclusive. What is reflecting off of 8 Wendy Larry Charlie 910 is not over Upland Public Library, like I'm documenting while I'm inside of that venue. And this is the entity that's acting with impunity. That's P.O.C. They're engaging in that pattern of conduct with a level of impunity that is speaking to the federal prosecution of levying war as a corrupt and mentally ill, deranged, obsessive, and delusional population. The entity is doing so with regard to the absence of any defense under the law, with regard to what is science that is prosecuting them, and in the face of that, pacing and stalking in helicopters and in airplanes and stalking with light and maintaining this chaotic, ongoing, psychologically torturous pattern of conduct while you are being prosecuted and the federal judges are literally convicting you based on this evidence that's published on social media in real time. This is the entity that's going to be subject to that. Everybody that's inside, including Mickey and Myra, they're going to prison. Don't forget that. While the entity is acting with this impunity with the people of the state. This is P.O.C. It is currently under the fake sun in Ontario, California, speaking to prosecuting Ontario, California, and prosecuting Upland, California, which is a prosecution when you're understanding a greater pattern of conduct. It's a prosecution of the state of California. All right, that is being diagnosed as severely mentally ill while they practice a deranged and criminal and corrupt P.O.C. It is 10:15 a.m. That's the entity, United States Postal Service, relevant to what is targeting me by me not receiving my mail, pursuant to court hearings where this entity gang stalking me just like this, and simultaneously sitting in courtrooms where I'm not present, while the Ontario Police, that is this entity, kidnapping me, pursuant to malicious assertions made by this entity, that's gang stalking. And then they're engaging what is perjuring my character, and gang stalking will never establish or be even relevant to trying to claim that the person that you're gang stalking is mentally ill. In fact, it's the exact opposite. That entity will find itself subject to martial law, while a population of psychopathic, bloodthirsty, thieving, and deceitful criminals are engaging in what is a corrupt government system. And it is treason while they practice it with those across the globe, like the state of California is, like the U.S. military is. This is P.O.C. The United States Postal Service is being federally prosecuted as sex offenders. Alrighty, it is currently 10:16 a.m. P.O.C. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. The entity is keeping the fake sun for 6 hours over the Upland Public Library. This is Amazon Prime that is clearly targeting, and they have migrated north, they being the gang stalking commercial airline companies, all of whom are being federally prosecuted. You're paying attention to where they are aligning as they make a U-turn, not going to any destination, which none of them are when they're engaged in the pattern of conduct, which is stalk over what is the fake sun that is over me, going into Chevron to make a purchase. The fake sun is not over Upland, it's over this vehicle, 7 VCR 808, who are stalking by going into Chevron to make a purchase in concert with the U.S. military. This is mental illness as corruption is being exposed. Impossible light while he opens his door. This is how the entity is targeting and use of the device, federal stalking, and this is the conspiracy to murder. This is the pattern of conduct. This is the same entity that's engaged in this while the fake sun is simultaneously in Upland, California. This is P.O.C. This is called relevant positioning. This is a gang stalk and veterinary office, and this is what the mentally ill do while they're engaged in criminal monitoring with the government. All right, that's the P.O.C. That's called audible activity. Impossible light moves across the building. 7 VCR 808 is severe. They're going to be committed with the evidence of stalking with light. The entities engaged in this while, I just want to be clear, look, you're looking at the gang stalking parking enforcement that's stalking me with light at nightfall. All right, engaging the P.O.C., the Asian male that engages in pacing while the entity is stalking at the square that's on the south side of this apartment complex. They're not doing cartwheels over the Ovid Family Community Library Senior Center because I'm not over there anymore. Neither is the fake sun. Okay, it's also not in Upland, California. That's a prosecution of Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is a domestic terrorist, and it's going to be prosecuted for treason and conspiring my murder specifically. And I'm going to federally prosecute also with regard to the ongoing impunity of Bezos, who is a criminal under the evidence, and I'm going to prosecute that company as well. I'm going to prosecute the demons that are flying those planes, and I'm going to prosecute that label, that logo itself, draining the pockets of such and exposing them as what are a threat to the American society that are under surveillance through the operation of companies like Amazon Prime. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:23 a.m. My evidence shows the fake sun is even over me at this Chevron, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, setting at the Starbucks after 6 o'clock in the evening, remaining over me while I'm at the corner of what is F Street in Euclid, which is the same location, but this is E Street, so the next block is F Street, and the fake sun, Southwest Airlines, is stalking by flying over me while this fake sun is over me on the same street. That none of that is a natural environment, it's a specific environment. This is the prosecution pursuant to judicially noticed facts. This is a gang stalker that engaged in kidnapping with the gang members of the Ontario Police, intentionally crossing path into the fake sun, and doing so for years while the entity's maintenance at a heightened elevation from what would be the same airport. This is the entity in very highly unintelligent and documented criminal activity. This is martial law. That's what's going to happen here. And this is going to be an exclusive means of what is martial law for the purpose of diagnosing a population that's going to be subject to involuntary commitments. Okay? While they come toward you, while they continue, this is ongoing impunity. They're going to be prosecuted for it. They're not free to engage in none of this. It's all criminal surveillance. P.O.C. This is a lesbian also. License 35971U1. And Chevron is being prosecuted. See that light above? It's not even the sun. That's a lesbian, in fact. She's stalking another woman. And she's mentally ill. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 10:24 a.m. where the fake sun's remaining over me at the same time at the Upland Public Library. P.O.C. You see the fake sun moving? This is identification of the mentally ill. P.O.C. Alrighty, short video. This is Southwest Airlines that is clearly targeting this morning at the senior center in concert with the people of the state under the fake sun that still remains over me. Remember, the sunrise is off of Euclid Avenue at that Ovid Family Community Library at 6 in the morning. It's after 10 and it's still over me as I'm leaving that same venue. And Southwest Airlines, including Delta Airlines and United Airlines and Amazon Prime and UPS, are engaged in targeting, and this is the evidence of mental instability. There is that's occurring also, moreover, at G Street in Euclid. You're not starting a takeoff, you're not completing a takeoff, you are miles away, and they continuously do so, while Southwest Airlines is stalking me, flying over my head at 1444 North Euclid Avenue, where gang stalking is underway at the bus stop. To board what is gang stalker Omnitrans. All angles of this criminal case have already been established. This is the P.O.C. And this is, again, the entity that's being federally prosecuted with these judicially noticed facts. That is bus 2363, and the driver is an employee of record with regard to prosecuting for surveillance on the roads and the highways and facilitation in the conspiracy to murder. While this is comprehensive surveillance, this is P.O.C. And the entity is in clear violation of the law. They don't have any rights to engage in what is proven surveillance as opposed to the constitutionally protected private speech of driving on the roads and the highways. This is gang stalking. It's P.O.C. License 1545907. And it's also evidence that the sun doesn't move through the window of the bus, because both aren't happening at the same time. P.O.C. All right, that is Southwest Airlines again, seconds later, okay? This is severely mentally deranged behavior, stalking, and stalking with blocking via traffic 8 NOB 686, 6 AVD 301. That is Southwest Airlines. Southwest is the entity. Every airline is engaging in criminal surveillance, which is the conspiracy to murder as you keep under surveillance criminally with the U.S. military, which is what Southwest and the Ontario International Airport is doing. And it's a matter of judicial notice that this is not the product of a takeoff. The location is 706 North Euclid Avenue at the intersection of G Street and Euclid. This is the judicially noticed facts that are serving to prosecute the entire entity. That's the P.O.C. fake sun. I just wanted to get that seconds later. It is also time of day 10:39 a.m. This is the P.O.C. The entity has a fake sun over me after 6 p.m., which is right here. Glen Matoma DDS, the Jessup building, Amazon Prime gang stalking via deliveries in the same way that the entity is maintaining that in specific environment that is over me right now in Upland. The two are not happening, and it is in fact remaining in Upland. That's for over 6 hours. That's why I got it 6 hours later over my head, just like this. This is mentally ill conduct that is fitting and requiring what is martial law. That's impossible light moving across the bus bench. These are all demons. And Southwest Airlines is being prosecuted for ongoing psychological torture, and the criminal act, which is conspiring to murder and psychologically torture someone while you are also making money. It's beyond a RICO case, and it is also treason. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:40 a.m. This is a mentally ill population, and martial law is going to lock it down. And you're also subject to what are involuntary commitments. P.O.C. It is currently 11:31 p.m. and the evidence shows that the entirety of that crime scene, replete with the fake sun, follows me into the city of UPLAND, taking the path that I specifically take, that is north of Euclid Avenue. The entities engaged in this while that fake sun with the gang stalkers of the commercial airline companies are indeed stalking, which is what I'm documenting at Euclid and G Street. It's what I'm documenting while the entity is maintaining surveillance through the neighborhoods where the crime scene is identified, meaning this is state surveillance where all of the population at all places and at all times speaking to public corruption. The people of the state are engaged in surveillance, including where they reside at, which is no private property. The government's criminal pattern of conduct, a public entity's pattern of conduct, is what is controlling, which is proven through the judicially noticed fact that the sun would not possibly in a natural environment be over your home, strolling across the roof of your home to keep in alignment with me, which I am documenting as a pattern of conduct in other places, in other cities, in other states like Nevada, where it would not be. Also, it's absolutely impossible. This is where the people of the state are surrounded with the evidence regarding what is criminal activity that is also mentally ill, okay? Mentally ill, deranged group behavior. This is speaking to what is a national security threat, and what you're going to pay attention to is how I am arriving at the Upland Public Library almost 2 hours later than I did yesterday, and the entity has the fake sun arriving over me right now as I arrive at that venue, contrary to what the natural environment dictates. So this is speaking to what is the automatic guilt regarding the allegations of gang stalking, which is recognized by the behavioral pattern of those in a specific environment that are maliciously targeting someone that they intend to criminally defame in order to murder and kidnap that person, which is entirely mentally deranged. It is evil, and under the law that is malicious, and it's also state action, okay? This is pursuant to a system. So with regard to martial law, with regard to the diagnosis of a population that are being prosecuted in this public investigation, you're also analyzing the behavior of those that are in the library, such as what I'm documenting on an ongoing basis, while the entity is exhibiting obsession and delusion, not normalcy, not ignorance, certainly not innocence, when they are in the exact same environment, and when that environment cannot possibly be present there, and they are maintaining that ongoing indifferent demeanor, like what I'm documenting the demons doing inside of the Upland Public Library. What you're going to see right now is an Asian female with a minor child monitoring me with that child, and the two gang stalking adults are monitoring by walking into the Upland Public Library. They are stalking. And that is also what you need to recognize, the government that is stalking, not private citizens, not private conduct, and it is a criminal and furtherance of murder. It is surveillance. The sun that is over this building is not one that would be here if what I documented yesterday at 9:53 in the morning was a natural environment. The sun that is over this building is speaking to the criminal pattern of conduct, and it's not the natural environment by virtue of presence, because it would have already been here and have already moved on like in the natural environment, as opposed to remaining idle over this venue like I documented yesterday. Not only did the natural environment not exist, that's not the natural environment either. I'm showing the ongoing inconsistency because the entity is stalking through an environment and stalking as a population in that environment. And you are diagnosing mental illness not only based on their criminal activity, but also the behavior of those in that environment. The entity that is stalking in the library as I capture this damning evidence. The entity is one that is looking down, staring at their books, studious, okay, focused. This is mental illness as you are looking at the malicious and the obsessed stalker. That is refusal. That's what that is. That's impunity. All right. That's maniacal. Okay. While the entity is engaging in that and engaging in that criminal activity in the face of being caught by the world, but let alone by the federal judge that is assessing a population that's engaging in that criminal activity. These are the details you are analyzing. This is what you are paying attention to. When an entity is seeking to create the illusion of it establishing the norm and the targeted individual being the exception, meaning they are the one that is mentally ill, they are the one that is imagining, they are the one that is not actually subject to this very mentally ill pattern of conduct. And by behaving in the ways that they do, they are exhibiting severe psychopathic, highly malicious, and criminal behavioral patterns, excuse me. And this is the same conduct where they are working inside of the venue, where they're entering in and exiting inside of the venue, where they're going in and out of the bathroom inside of that venue, where they're behaving as though it is the best day that they've ever had inside of that venue, while that evidence is simultaneously being documented, which they are monitoring, which they are actually hostile to. This is the evidence of that which is a national security threat. This is the behavior that you are paying attention to, and you are understanding and recognizing the malice behind it, and also what is the delusion, the ongoing obsession, the ongoing disguises of hostility. Because while they engage in that, what is the entity doing? Sounding sirens. While they're smiling, maintaining what is supposed to be that outward demeanor, that outward disguise regarding criminal conduct of targeting another. This is entirely mentally deranged behavior of the group that is gang stalking. That is absolutely exposed while I remain in Ontario and I come to the same library, and you look at the evidence of all of them on video in that environment, with the teenagers walking up and down the stairs without a care in the world, with the employees smiling from ear to ear, with them engaging what is necessarily their role. And this is how the entity is subject to what are inevitable diagnoses for severe mental illness based on their malicious criminal activity of targeting innocent people, and doing so while engaging in what is essentially projecting as a group that is bullying another. In other words, bullying another and establishing the norm while they conduct themselves and maintain their composure in ways in which you are only assessing the surface level, because they're not actually. When that fake sun and that impossible light and that ongoing helicopter and ongoing sirens is sounding while they're smiling and keeping their back to the target individual and acting like nothing is happening, they are not controlling themselves. They're not containing their hostility. You are analyzing every feature, not only the surface, but in substance. But nonetheless, the purpose of the pattern of conduct is to bully that person. You're bullying them psychologically, and you are bullying them while you are stalking them as a gang that seeks to establish what is the norm that is psychopathic, the norm that is bloodthirsty and sexually perverted, the norm that is obsessed, while they are content and focused on never ceasing to engage in that criminal activity, ever. That's also why martial law is mandated by the ongoing evidence proving that the government is engaging in levying war against any American citizen, which is the evidence of the P.O.C. That's what you're mindful of, and that is also the evidence that has what is the ironic impact, contrary to what the entity intended, trying to make the other person, the targeted individual, look like they're crazy, when in fact they are shown to be absolutely, absurdly psychotic. As we use these terms with a general reference in the vernacular regarding that which is entirely socially abnormal, socially unacceptable, even socially dangerous for this to exist without an appropriate label, without any indication, without any warning, all right, without any guard to protect others. This is what is the entity that's gang stalking inside of the Open Public Library while I'm at the Chevron gas station and the sun is already over me at this location and everybody in there is behaving as though nothing is happening. That's the entity that's being diagnosed for severe mental instability. That's the one. And the one that includes their children. The one that is engaging in that maniacal conduct, which is designed to result in psychologically torturing and murdering and kidnapping another person, and including what is the innocent, highly suggestive and persuasive appearance. That's only when you're ignorant about the fact that they're demons, and the significance that they're creating activity to monitor another. But on the surface, it's using a child, which is supposed to suggest to you subconsciously the exact opposite of what the allegations are, is underway. That is a threat to national security. Okay, the behavior of those inside of the Open Public Library, while I am proving outside in the city of Ontario that they were all gang stalking yesterday and that they're gang stalking now. That's what you are understanding, and this is how you are getting what is a clear and accurate assessment regarding diagnosing as you are criminally prosecuting for the criminal pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. arriving at the Upland Public Library pursuant to what are demons that are obsessively stalking, walking in next to me. This is what you'll see right now under the fake sun. It is, by the way, 11:40 a.m. This is the ongoing engagement in that P.O.C.
Are you recording me?
Excuse me?
Are you recording me?
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Your camera's like facing me.
My camera? Everybody has cameras on the backs of their phone. Is there a reason why I should tape you? Are you a celebrity?
Kind of like
Oh.
she's aiming towards me. You're talking to it, so.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Not that I have to show you, but I'm not. Is there a reason why you would suspect that? Are you a little paranoid?
No.
Yeah, that's the entity that's engaging in the pattern of conduct. The evidence speaks for itself. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, it is currently 11:41 a.m. Stalking like they're supposed to as I walk into any and every doorway. This is a population that's going to be subject to martial law for the protection of the American public. P.O.C. Alrighty, it is 11:50 a.m. So what you witness is the entity making unfounded allegations. If you listen to what this third party is stating, first of all, he's stating it in the crime scene. So this is literally the evidence of a knowledgeable, meaning malicious. This is surveillance. This is knowledge that you know that you're being documented, in other words. And then you are seeking to convey through your behavior, your outward behavior that is noticeable by others, and through what it is that you're stating, which is noticeable, readily noticeable by others, that you are ignorant as to the criminal activity that you are engaging in. This is defined as malice, okay? The malice does not require high intelligence. Malice is rooted in what is demonic. It's rooted in what is spiritually dark, okay, deceptive, high level of deception. It's psychopathic also with regard to the personality that engages in malicious conduct. And what you witnessed actually is the third party that engages in the equally mentally ill conduct. And this is based on what they, because this is not an individual, this is the entity. This is the entity that's stalking by helicopter. This is the entity that's stalking by plane. This is the entity that's maintaining surveillance together. So as you listen to me speak to the fact that you are analyzing, which that's exactly what you're doing. The entity is being criminally prosecuted and they're being diagnosed via prosecution. And as you are analyzing the behavior of those that are gang stalking in the library, while the next day I am prosecuting them, while that fake son is proven as such while I'm in Ontario, and already at the same time, the library is covered in engineer light, lit up like a Christmas tree, and everyone is behaving as though nothing is happening. And while it sits there 6 hours later, the entity is behaving in that manner, including while I capture documentation evidence of it. This is not to suggest that there is a way that a gang stalker can behave that'll make it normal at all, because there is no way to do that. That's not what this is suggesting. What it is revealing is the high level of malice by that entity that's engaging in public corruption, seeking to establish through everyone's shared outward exposed sense of meaning, and they're exposing what they want you to see. So everything that you hear, everything that you see is that which especially the people of the state are designed to expose. They are supposed to give the air of normalcy, nothing to see here, folks, nothing happening. And anything that's asserted by the targeted individual, it's only in their mind. Okay. And because everybody is on that same page that nothing is happening, nothing abnormal about helicopter activity flying in circles, nothing abnormal about light flying all over the place, nothing abnormal or noticeable, and no one notices. In other words, it's not happening, nothing to see here, meaning there's no criminal case because none of us acknowledge it as the sun sits over the building for over 6 hours. Okay. Nothing abnormal about the public nuisance of all the ways in which the entity is engaging in amplified audible activity. Nothing whatsoever. This is what the entity seeks to subconsciously suggest through their behavior. And it is entirely unnatural and it is abnormal. This is, as an entity does this as a group, they seek to establish the normalcy. This is how they are targeting an American citizen that is subject to, as they are levying war and doing so, psychological warfare, and physically they are levying war while they are stalking you in concert with the government that is engaging in underscoring that prosecution by planes and helicopters, fire, police, and ambulance in that specific environment. And what you listen to is the entity that listened to me analyze the behavior, which is entirely entirely abnormal and highly malicious, psychopathic, in fact, and antisocial. And while you look at all the psychopaths behave in the identical behavior in that environment as though nothing is happening while they're engaging in that very criminal pattern of conduct, that is the pattern of conduct. Their abnormal behavior in that environment. The entities engaging in that one, while they listen to me provide you that ongoing detailed analysis, you listen to what is not the equal opposite, which is not the evidence that you're not mentally ill or that you're not malicious, because that's what the entity listened to and engaged in. What you listened to was the ongoing unfounded allegations based on extraordinarily close attention to someone who you shouldn't even be noticing, really, because the entity is engaging in what is exhibiting what is, you're the last person that they're concerned about. They don't even notice you. They don't even notice the helicopter activity. They don't know anything about the planes flying in circles around the building. They don't hear anything about the train activity that's extraordinarily loud, that's going on for a prolonged period. They don't recognize all the sirens that are going off all day. They don't notice any of that. They don't notice the abnormal light activity, nothing about the environment. They don't notice any of that, but they notice as you're merely holding that as being in custody of your phone, which is not any sort of basis to inquire anyone. And moreover, you don't have any privacy. And I just want to be clear, the fact that you don't have any privacy under the law is still not any sort of normal expectation regarding being questioned about what you're doing with your phone, especially while they're doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing in the bathroom, and I am not making any assumptions, and I hadn't before also, that you're monitoring me or recording me because you are merely in custody of your phone. It is known now, the entity is monitoring. So I don't ask any questions, I document it. Because you're a sex offender in the bathroom with your phone in a specific environment. You're engaging in surveillance of genitalia, surveillance in a private space, surveillance as an entity. You are an egregiously violent sex offender. And the entity is engaging in this conduct. What you heard outside is the entity that is failing at, yet trying to rebut that analysis that you just heard, and it's impossible to. Because number one, the overarching premise, there is no normal behavior of the gang stalker, number one. Number two, and why is that? Excuse me, let's go back to number one. Why is that? Because you are talking about what reigns supreme, what supersedes all. That will never become the natural environment, ever. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter your facial expression. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter how important you think what you're doing is. It doesn't matter what you want those other people to perceive you as. What matters is the fact of that environment. And where that environment is present, surveillance is present. Period. There is no such thing as normal behavior of the gang stalker. It is impossible for them to do that. What I have provided is ongoing analysis regarding the behavioral patterns, which are psychopathic. Okay, and they share in that behavioral pattern. And this is how you are diagnosing that malicious population. They are doing so in furtherance of murdering someone, criminally defaming that person, kidnapping them, framing them for criminal activity that they did not commit. And they do so knowingly, not ignorantly, not innocently, which is impossible under the fake sun. Everyone under that fake sun, except that targeted individual, knows that that fake sun is there. And I have proven that as well. Okay? The entity's engaging in this pattern of conduct, and it is also, I just want to be clear, a matter of judicial notice. And I would submit in the tribunal that a matter of judicial notice is relevant here under circumstances of the supernatural pattern of conduct, and that the entire population is ignorant of it. Okay, that is entirely unreasonable, and that is impossible. This is an entity that's engaging in what is maintaining that environment that's over one person as you travel, as my documentation has shown, even in my car from state to state. And that state is not ignorant about that. That state is engaging in what is a shared pattern of conduct. That state is engaging in that shared pattern of conduct in that environment that they are not reasonably ignorant about, nor actually. And that is also because of the government's pattern of conduct of stalking in planes and helicopters, fire, police, and ambulance. So I just want to be clear, that is something to be recognized as a matter of judicial notice as well. The supernatural feature regarding the environment is something that the entire population that's in it is not ignorant about while they are practicing targeting and isolating American citizens like myself. They are not ignorant about that. So just want to be clear on that. But there is no normal behavior. There's no way that they can act that's going to make them appear as though that's impossible because of the fact of the specific environment. So under the fake sun, you're going to look at them wearing their uniforms, engaging in what is their ceremonies, engaging in what is their family picnics, and engaging in what is their important work. And this is teaching you and showing you how there is no respecter of persons. There is no exception to the application of the law. And there is no difference when they're all engaging in that in the same environment. And that is also common sense. It really brings home a foundational point. There is no difference amongst them. We make differences in our mind, distinctions in our mind, which are superficial, actually. But there is no difference. And what this entity is doing, what I'm telling you about the fake sun that's over, this is what the bottom line that doesn't change. The fake sun is over the library yesterday when I'm already here during the 9 a.m. hour, preparing to enter in, which I enter at 10 o'clock. I capture the fake sun over everybody inside of this building. And if that's the fake sun, oh, well, then that's the engineer, that's the sunlight. And you're going to prosecute based on the illusions that all of the demons thought that no one would ever know about and recognize or believe or hear about, etc. That's not the truth. And you have been set up and you're pinned down to the illusion that you have created. The entity is engaging in what is maintaining this whole environment. Okay, so 24 hours later, let's see the same thing happen. And if that's the case, then the sun would not have been over my head like it is when I'm at Chevron, where I'm already inside of the Upland Public Library. And like I stated outside, where you are diagnosing, and you're diagnosing not only mental illness by psychopathic pacing in the sky space, by those that are maintaining aerial surveillance, by planes and helicopters and jets, but you're also doing so when you are assessing the behavioral issues relevant to gang stalking by the people of the state surrounding that targeted individual, when they are engaging in what is psychological torture through their psychopathic behavior, speaking to what is ironically revealing obsession and delusion, while they are being documented and behaving as though they're not engaging in egregious criminal activity. And they're doing that while having minor children running all around, laughing and joking and engaging in what is presence in the library, entering and exiting as though there is nothing to be worried about, and all manner of prosecution for domestic terrorism, martial law is what is at stake here. And the entity is doing that based on not only the role that they pin themselves to, but they're doing that based on how the pattern of conduct is designed. The people of the state are literally monitoring in the background while I am recording this podcast. And they are doing so while they are simultaneously behaving only based on what is your superficial knowledge as you're assessing mental illness. You are expecting mental illness to look like somebody gibberish and jabberish and smelling a certain way and looking in a disheveled manner and perhaps suffering with some sort of addiction, or perhaps suffering financially, struggling financially, which is insufficient, especially when the entity is manipulating circumstances in people's lives in order to make that, engineer, in other words, mental illness. But this is the entity's illusion. So these are the circumstances that this corrupt entity states as evidence of mental illness. And they're engaging in this conduct where they are behaving one way outwardly, and they are engaging in the deranged pattern of conduct, which is pursuant to presence and activity creation, while they keep smiles on their face and maintain children all around them and behave as though nothing is happening and that they don't notice anything. They're ignorant about everything pertaining to the pattern of conduct. The entity is engaging in what is psychopathic and antisocial conduct, which is a threat to American citizens, where this group gang conduct is serving to what is surveil an American citizen, violating their right to privacy and violating their human rights to not be subject to it, and also to document and enforce their rights against it. The entity that engages in what is behaving as though nothing is happening, while they are very much engaging in a pattern of conduct, which I prove while I'm in Ontario. And we revisit the evidence captured while I'm inside of the Upland Public Library, approaching it yesterday on video. That is the evidence to have the entity that is exhibiting severe mental instability of a highly malicious nature, while they are engaging in criminal activity with the public entity that is the state. This is how the people of the state's role is designed. And it is under no circumstances any sort of relevant evidence pertaining to innocence when they're engaging in the pattern of conduct pertaining to ignorance, or that you have any sort of legal defense with regard to engaging in the public entity's P.O.C. And what this third party is stating, first of all, this is an admission to overly concern about me. And that makes sense because the fake sun is right over his head. He's engaging in the pattern of stalking in my path as I get up and walk toward the door, as I show you every time I walk out of the doorway, as I show you as I walk out of this library in the evening. The entity is stalking in the path, making sure they are walking in step with me. They are walking out in step with me. And that's exactly what this psychopath is doing while he is out of his mouth, speaking as though he is questioning whether I am recording him based on what is unfounded concern. First of all, someone that you are not concerned about, you are at a distance from me, and you want to convey the notion that you are focused on the book drop, to put your book in the book drop. And that's fine. And if that were the case, then the ongoing questioning about whether you're recording what he's doing while I'm speaking, which I was not addressing. I continued speaking, but I didn't say anything. And I stood there in order to make a point. And he stood there staring. And now, with regard to what is the abnormal level of focus, that right there is the pattern of conduct. And this is actually obsession, making sure that you are stalking in the path, as opposed to what is any sense of normal concern about someone that is recording you. And you are assuming that I'm recording you based on the fact that I did not design the cell phone that has cameras on the back of it, which so does his and so does everyone else's. And that is no basis to question when someone is merely in custody of their phone. The entity is engaging in what is failing at rebutting what I am speaking to, which is the analysis of the behavior, which is very psychopathic, while they are in the library gang stalking under that fake sun, which is 24 hours later, not over that library. And then you are then assessing and analyzing the abnormal behaviors of the gang stalker, who are going to be subject to martial law. To engage in what is the unfounded questioning and the unfounded paranoid behavior is not the opposite of that mentally ill behavior. The entity is engaging in what is making unfounded allegations based on knowledge that they're being documented. And that is what I am using as evidence, outside of which you already know what their knowledge is, because the fake sun is there. That is, in turn, psychopathic behavior as well. The entity is doing this, though, while they're listening to me analyze the behavior. And I'm speaking specifically on the tactic of acting like nothing is happening. So this genius engages in what is making unfounded allegations and exhibiting unfounded concern. If someone is recording you, why do you keep standing there in front of their camera? Because that's what he did, stood there staring at me while I am not talking to him. While you ordinarily, when you're minding your business, I know when I'm minding mine, I wouldn't even know what he was talking about, unless there's something where I think I heard my name, or you start cussing out loud, or you're doing something that catches my attention. I'm minding my business, and I'm minding my business. This is what the entity wants to be perceived as, and they are absolutely not. You know this from the environment, but we are analyzing their behavior as well, distinct from the environment. And the entity is engaging in what is overly being concerned about me, which is not the evidence that you are not mentally ill, because you're not acting like nothing is happening. When you are overly concerned, speaking to what is stalking in the path and exhibiting what is targeting, that's the same conduct, and it is abnormal. It's not normal to make those allegations by merely being in custody of your phone. Everyone has cameras on the back of their phones. I didn't design the phone. And that's not a basis to assume that you're being recorded. Okay, the design of the phone, which I cannot control, and the fact that I'm in custody of it. I'm using it, and I was using it before you were there. And moreover, they are doing the exact same thing. This is an entity that is failing at rebutting the evidence of analyzing their mentally ill behaviors while they are gang stalking. This is, moreover, nothing other than a confirmation to you regarding what is absolutely true, as I show you everything that you already know in their silence while you look at the environment. Because there is no natural environment that includes that which is over the open public library, and then 24 hours later remaining over me in Ontario. At G Street in Euclid, engineer light moving across the bus bench, Southwest Airlines engaging what is serial flight over that intersection, targeting as the commercial airline companies are with the U.S. military. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and then you go back and you analyze that behavior that's on video. It is the exact opposite of what the entity intends to, which is make the target individual appear as though they are imagining things, and that everyone is going to believe the lie that the gang members present. Nothing's happening and everything is normal. In fact, this is the best day of my life, and I'm not even concerned about this person. This is what you were subconsciously supposed to be accepting, because all the gang members act like that. And it is not rebutting that evidence of severely mentally unstable conduct as you are analyzing, as you are looking in the aggregate. That is, we're looking back at what I documented yesterday, what they were doing, which is mentally ill. upon criminal conduct, while you then engage in what is giving me a line of questions to which I do not have to respond, but I acknowledge because I'm documenting for your good, for you to witness it. And that is the entity that fails at rebutting what is the evidence of mental illness. And in fact, that is mentally ill behavior as well, equally psychopathic, because you know what he knows. Not only is he monitoring, he's doing so and failing at trying to suggest that you're not acting like nothing is happening, because you then begin engaging what is questioning someone on no basis because of the design of the phone, which that person doesn't control, and because they're in custody of it, which is not evidence that you are being recorded. And that is also evidence that you are mentally ill, suffering from a type of paranoia. This is the entity that seeks to trigger the targeted individual. It's not working. This is the entity that seeks to create what is an environment that is psychologically harmful, and also seeks to criminally defame that targeted individual that wants to report, document, or assert that a population is targeting them. Okay, this is the evidence that's serving to have that population subject to martial law and involuntarily committed. Okay, that's the P.O.C. So I wanted to give you a breakdown of that. This is what the unintelligent gang stalkers, the vagina monitors, the zombies that don't have any brains. Okay, it's not a matter of intelligence. You're not intelligent when you're stalking into the fake sun. And there is no matter of intelligence that you're acquiring because all of the dummies gang up on one person. That's not how you're acquiring a higher intelligence quotient either. They're all dumb, so you just have a lot of dumb people that are all being prosecuted together, and it will be martial law. This is P.O.C. It's currently 12:11 p.m. Criminal summoning with regard to monitoring me in the venue where the fake sun arrived later than it did yesterday, remained over me in Ontario. The psychopaths that are under the corrupt leadership of Adam Tuckerman are using the doors with regard to stalking with amplified noise. This is ongoing harassment while they're stalking with amplified audible activity under the fake sun. And this is that P.O.C. This is the fake sun. This is where it is in the morning down this staircase at 10 o'clock, and the fake sun is over this same roof. This is the fake sun in the same position. This is the significance of what are the mentally ill that are in surveillance, engaging in surveillance under the guise of maintaining fire departments and police departments and ambulance services in the cities that are gang stalking. And this is the purpose of the city library that's engaging in surveillance in concert with the people of the state. And it is severely mentally ill behavior. It's also very annoying where the mentally ill are stalking you, okay? And that's what they're doing. They're engaging in stalking with noise. They're pacing in and out of bathrooms, keeping my vagina under surveillance, and doing so while they are monitoring the evidence, prosecuting them. And this is impunity while a demon right in your face is engaged in the P.O.C. And that's what's monitoring my vagina as well. And I'm going to prosecute for that. Okay? The disgusting pattern of conduct that the mentally ill engage in. And this is an entity that's engaging in this with regard to crossing path in what is engineered light at what is 5 o'clock. It's 5:09 p.m. The impunity of the domestic terrorists, who are the people of the state, who are obsessively and engaging in the dedicated act of surveilling and furtherance of murder, they will be subject to martial law. Okay, this is the P.O.C. There is no natural environment that includes the sun being over the roof of this building, like I documented yesterday morning at 9:53 a.m. and it being over this same building at what is 9:53 a.m. and it is 5:09 p.m. This is the same building. This is not in Los Angeles. This is not in Florida. It did not go anywhere, while even it arrived later than it did yesterday. But you are looking at the evidence, and that stalker goes into the bathroom where surveillance is underway. Okay, that's the P.O.C., and that is the entity engaging in mentally ill behavior. Those that are working for fire departments, this is the stalker. As I get up, crossing path communication device, you see the breasts that are bouncing up and down while he's gang stalking under the fake sun. That's a mentally ill person. And they're inside of the building of the library. These are the employees that are obsessively monitoring. All they're doing is slamming doors every time I engage in movement, every time I engage in what is publishing a video. And this is the entity that's going to be prosecuted for what is psychological torture, harassment, because of the mentally ill that are monitoring. This This is P.O.C. The employees of the Open Public Library are going to prison. They're providing what is a systematic means of surveillance with the demons that just come in to engage in gang stalking. This is P.O.C. It is currently 5:10 p.m. This is referred to as impossible light activity, the engineer light, where surveillance is underway, no matter what the activity appears as. That's why it's there, and the entity is going to be federally prosecuted for it. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. Unity's flying at a higher elevation and is combining what is the sound of that which is reminiscent of like firecrackers or gunshots, and is combining with the gang stalkers that want to be right next to me. Okay, this is the fake moon. These are the same vagina monitors that are stalking everywhere, and they want to come and be right next to me, gang stalking with the state. They're doing so in light. These are demons that are monitoring, and these are demons that are doing so where it is that I'm sleeping. This is the state. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaging in the pattern of conduct. They're monitoring with the entity that's maintaining activity, that's stalking by helicopter, that's engaging in what is maintaining the specific environment, and these two vaginas are stalking in the path. This is the entity that's engaged in that ongoing harassment with obsessed stalkers that are maintaining that pattern of conduct. Everything that they're saying and doing is within the same P.O.C. And that's the entity that's maintaining that. This is the fake moon, and then you listen to everything that they say with regard to, oh, I don't know you, I'm not talking to you, I'm not focused on you. They're here monitoring. Just like I'm documenting under the fake sun that's rising here and setting here, and this is the fake moon, and this is the same crime scene that you're recognizing. You're going to prosecute for this. This is what he's doing where it is that I'm sleeping, and this is the entity that is engaging in that ongoing harassment. Okay, that's the pattern. This is P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, 9:01 p.m. This is harassment while that population engages in that ongoing obsessive behavior. This is what I'm documenting by the entity that's engaged in that conduct when I'm in the library, when I'm documenting and where I am located, and the entity is stalking while I'm on the benches at the town square. This is what the entities engage in, and they're engaged in psychopathic pacing while they're acting like they are perturbed by my documenting them gang stalking. These are the demons, and this is the entity that's going to be prosecuted. They're monitoring. That's the P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, while the entity is stalking in the sky space, this is that population that's acting in sync, monitoring, and that's the behavior of the demon-possessed gang stalkers that are obsessed with me. Okay? Everything that they're saying and as they're acting, but they're stalking in the path. That's what you're focused on. That's the P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, 9:02 p.m. That's engaging in that P.O.C. This is operation of a communication device by crackhead, monitoring and doing so on behalf of the government. I would just want to be clear, the entity will be prosecuted. That's the P.O.C. Those are vagina monitors, both of them, a lesbian with her boyfriend. That's the P.O.C. Those are the ones that are engaged in that pattern of conduct. The entity is engaged in what is hostility. It doesn't matter what a demon is saying. They're here stalking. You're looking at the P.O.C. And the entity is engaging in that while they're hostile because they're being documented, and they're going to continue to be documented. And I'm going to prosecute for the obsessed stalkers that are doing so on behalf of the homosexuals stalking me from city to city in planes and helicopters. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:03 p.m. This is a stalker. That's light activity. That's a stalker. And they're subject to martial law. This is the P.O.C. This is the entity that is indeed gang stalking with the people of the state. And this is a stalker that's a demon that's making a turn when she is monitoring. That's a demon that's monitoring on my device and makes a turn like the coward, the vagina monitor, the lesbian she is. Because she doesn't want to be captured on video, and I don't need her face. I want to be clear. This is the documentation that's establishing the necessity of martial law. Okay? See? This is what the entity was doing at 4th Street and Euclid Avenue, stalking by helicopter, and all those license plates. They're being federally prosecuted while they are stalking as a mentally ill population. This is relevant to what is, again, the judicial notice. This is the specific environment. That's the fake moon. This is the targeting by the U.S. military that's doing the same thing while they're engaging in psychopathic pacing in commercial planes, where the entities engaging in that in the specific environment in concert with the people of the state. This is that mentally ill shared pattern, and the entities engage in this while they are, again, very much suicidal. And this is the entity that is posing a threat to themselves and the public. All right. The entities engaging in this under what is the fake sun during the day. This is where the fake sun rose, and this is where the fake moon is, where the surveillance is underway by the entity. This is this is the entity that is subject to federal prison. Like I stated, Myra and Mickey are employees at the Ovid Family Community Library engaged in years of surveillance and kidnapping while this criminal stalking is underway, and they're going to federal prison based on the body of evidence that they are targeting in the way in which the entity is engaged in 24-hour targeting. This is P.O.C. All right, this is psychopathic behavior, and this is the entity that is pacing in a helicopter as opposed to pacing multiple planes, as I'm documenting, under the specific environment, circumstances of a fake sun of engineer light. This is P.O.C. This is what the entity is doing with Delta Airlines, with Southwest Airlines, American Airlines, Amazon Prime Air, FedEx, UPS, doing so with Frontier Airlines, doing so with United Airlines, the entity that's providing the instrumentalities of interstate commerce. Okay? This is the prosecution for treason. And that is a gang stalker that's crossing path in concert with the entity, and this is a gang stalker at the same apartment complex. It's P.O.C. And this is the entity that's providing evidence. They're going straight to prison, they being the people of the state. So this is the entity that's providing evidence that's going on the internet, and these are the mentally ill that are being locked down with martial law, and they are also going to be federally prosecuted with regard to involuntary commitments, including the demons that are in the helicopters. And that's what was sitting next to me, and they're hostile vagina monitors that are obsessed with me, and they're also engaging in what is stalking. And they're engaging in that also as a community. The overweight African-American female that was in the engineer light under the fake sunrise this morning was gang stalking with the U.S. military, and this is the same apartment complex. They will not be receiving it. They're being prosecuted for terrorism, and they are engaging in mentally ill conduct of gang stalking, and they're the demon possessed that do so. This is the P.O.C. This is mental illness while you're looking at that engagement in that inhumane and unconstitutional and criminal conduct, which is an egregious sex offense. This is a demon possessed person. This is the mental illness of those that are stalking in the library under the fake sun like nothing is happening. They're going to be committed. This is the entity that's engaged in that POC, and stalking by helicopter is having the population of the POC, the population of the who are the people of the state, so isolated with regard to martial law and subject to that involuntary commitment status. And that's for the protection of the public. This is the entity that's levying war while stalking by helicopter, and they're doing so based on what is hostility. The couple that is engaged in, as I document, and I put the camera in their face and I refer to them as what they are, a crackhead, a lesbian, obsessed with me, stalking. That's exactly what they are. That's exactly what they are. This is the POC. The entity is hostile. The entity is harassing because they are engaged in criminal conduct. And while they continuously engage in that, they show the threat that they are to the public. That's exactly what they are. And they are going to prison. They are being committed. And they provide the evidence that is supporting that. Now, with relevance to what is the judicial notice, the judicially noticed facts is that the entity has the fake sun and the fake moon in the same position, and that is not the natural environment. And this is where the entity is harassing in the ways in which I'm documenting, and the entity is going to be federally prosecuted, and all of the legal implications regarding providing commercial planes while this pattern of conduct is underway, while you're maintaining a business, those companies are being federally prosecuted. They are sharing in this psychopathic pattern of conduct maliciously and knowingly. And whether or not they acknowledge the ongoing terrorism that's being documented, I don't need the CEO to acknowledge it. I'm going to prosecute the CEO for criminal charges. This is POC. It is currently 10:19 p.m. This is the inability of the mentally ill to avoid a federal prosecution. Based on that mental illness that I have proven with tangible evidence, you are witnessing the necessity of martial law and watching the backfire of the mentally ill as they prosecute themselves based on the obsession with me. This is the pattern of conduct. This is the Ovid Family Community Library, where the entity has the fake sun rising and setting, and where the fake moon is over me. And this is where the obsessed sex offenders are engaged in psychopathic pacing, both in commercial planes and in helicopters. This is POC. Alrighty, this is the entity that is repeatedly stalking. All right, that is flying off on video as you captured, and a psychopath that's looking off in the distance while stalking another person. That's the entity that's exhibiting the very mentally ill. That's the psychopathic obsessive disorder that is not suggesting anything about ignorance or innocence. The entity is engaging in what is exhibiting the behavioral pattern that is serving to have the population diagnosed as a group that's sharing in the criminal pattern of conduct, which is speaking to the behavioral health issue that's a national security threat. The entity is engaging in what is repeatedly flying over while all the evidence is now being published on the internet. This is an entity that engages in mentally ill behavior, has a psychiatric break. I document it, and then they persist in engaging in more and more of it. This is occurring under the circumstances of when the entity engages in more and more commercial planes. This is the same psychotic behavior with helicopter, okay? This is the entity that's going to be diagnosed. The entity is going to produce their identity regarding who is stalking at this time right now. They're going to produce their identity. They are going to prison. They're subject to commitments. And it's the same with the entity stalking in the commercial planes. The entity is not maintaining any sense of mystery or ignorance, and the entity will be subject to federal prison. So the entity is going to produce that. That's going to be called discovery, because they will produce the identity of what it is that I'm documenting and literally their name, because that person, those people are going to federal prison. It is currently 10:26 p.m. under the fake moon, speaking to everything that you are documenting beforehand. So everything I documented walking to Upland, California, every license plate that I'm capturing, everything that's happening in the library under a fake sun that sat over that building after 5 p.m. when you're mindful of the fact that I was inside of that, or standing looking at that same building at the same roof at 9:53 a.m. 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 8 hours of the fake sun sitting over. And that's after it wasn't even over the building at the same time, because I left Ontario later than the time when I did yesterday. So the natural environment would not include what I documented on video yesterday, that the sun was over. That's the fake sun that's over pursuant to surveillance. In the same way the fake moon is over me, where the mentally ill, the demon possessed, are stalking in a helicopter and engaging in what is psychopathic behavior, which is necessitating mental examinations, which is exactly what is going to happen by virtue of documenting the pattern of conduct. And this is a matter of judicial notice. The specific environment, which is tied to what is recognizing mental illness, because nothing other than the surveillance is underway in that environment. That is why it is there, regardless of the entity's mentally ill tactics, such as behaving as though nothing is happening, which is actually the evidence speaking to very highly deranged behavioral patterns. This is the pattern of conduct. It is currently 10:27 p.m. This is the entity that hands over evidence against itself, injects children, injects the developmentally challenged, engages in what is the pattern of conduct in highly malicious methods, such as waging false allegations, accusing the target individual of that which the entity has committed, engaging in the egregious sex offense, which is the perpetual sex offense, where an entity that is mentally ill obsesses over your genitalia and violates your privacy as a corporate entity, a corporate act of sexual violence. This is an entity that is subject to martial law and involuntary commitments. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:28 p.m. and what you're listening to is the entity that is monitoring. That's the mentally ill that are not engaging in what are actual acts of retaliation, because they are in the midst of a federal prosecution before the federal judge and before all the witnesses. The entity is engaging in what is criminal activity that they are admitting to in the course of the court hearing. And the entity is doing so, which is relevant to what is prosecuting those that are engaging in that. That is John Stewart Company apartment complex is gang stalking. The prosecution of Paul Leon is absolutely unsuccessful for him. I'm convicting him. He is engaged in the pattern of conduct. I'm being gang stalked and terrorized outside of the walls of the city hall, and that's occurring while the entity is doing the same thing with commercial airline planes. He is a part of the same community. He is engaging in that pattern of conduct, which is not limited to the business hours of that city hall. I'm subject to the same pattern of conduct during the day under the fake sun, which is also over that city hall. The entity is engaging in this conduct while they are targeting with Metro 102 apartments, downtown Ontario luxury apartments, the Ontario Fire Department, University of Laverne College of Law, a law institution that's going to be a corrupt law school that's going to be shut down. It will not continue in the provision of legal studies. It will not maintain any accredited status. They are not preparing. They are not in any position to prepare anyone to sit for the bar. This evidence is speaking to affect the entire entity. And also Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments, which is Sarah's Regis Group. This is P.O.C. It is current, and that's just the immediate environment right here. I am at the Ovid Family Community Library. I'm prosecuting the entire state of California. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 10:29 p.m. Alrighty, this is the entity at 10:36 at night, going out of their way to come right over as the entity is pacing around me by helicopter. Understand this is the act of the mentally ill that are engaging in what is only in their minds are they actually doing anything. This is the mentally ill pattern of conduct. They're stalking with light in the specific environment where the entity is stalking by helicopter. That white van, okay, like a rapist stalking in a van, a kidnapper stalking in a van, is aligned with the city of Ontario. That's engaging in what is light activity at 10:36 at night while the entity was pacing by helicopter. This is the same one that finds it hysterical under the fake sun he's being committed, and this stalking with light conduct is going to get him committed. Okay, this is the entity that's criminal conduct that's financed by the city of Ontario, and this is the criminal conduct that they're doing with the entity that is a demon stalking with light. This is all going to be used in court, but the entity is doing so while the entity is pacing by helicopter, and this is the hostile demons that are engaging in that pattern of conduct with the people. You see that? This is facilitation and gang stalking. Gang stalking and facilitation of gang stalking are two separate charges. This is the African American that's on video gang stalking. They're doing so what is at 10:38 p.m. All right, this is the P.O.C. You're not doing anything. It's Saturday night. Tomorrow's Sunday. They're doing it under the fake moon. During the day, when they're actually on the clock, they're not doing anything under the monitoring as well. But they're not doing anything right now. The entity just engaged in what is doing hula hoops over by helicopter, going out of their way to, as demons who are the mentally ill, to engage in what is stalking with light. They are engaging, they being the mentally ill, are in their minds. This is that conduct. You're engaged in witchcraft. No, you're engaged in mentally ill, deranged behavior, and they're engaged in criminal activity. That's what this is. This is where the entity is engaged in, whether the sunrise and the sunset. Stalking with light. This is where the entity has the fake moon, the sunrise, and the sunset, the specific environment. The entity literally just engaged in what is flying for 5 minutes and circles over me, targeting me, while the entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct. The city of Ontario using the resources of the city of Ontario, and that's a prosecution of Paul Leon. He is going to prison. And doing so at 10:30 at night. He's not doing anything other than gang stalking. This is the P.O.C. And so are all of the people of the state. All the buildings where you see the light touch and everything, they're all monitoring together. Okay, that's P.O.C. and this is mental illness that is shared by not just the City of Ontario employees, but the entire population. The entity is going to produce its identity. Okay, like I said, that terrorist in that helicopter, they are not a mystery. They're going to produce it. It's going to be a matter of discovery within the walls because they are going to prison, and so are the employees of the City of Ontario. This is P.O.C. These are vagina monitors that are engaging in that conduct together, just coming, engaging and parking in the front to engage in a little bit of light activity, which is terrorism and ongoing. It's relevant to psychological torture while they are focused on the one that is documenting it. Okay, there's nothing funny under the fake sun, and there's also nothing legitimate about the entity engaging in gang stalking under the malicious guise of utilizing the resources of a municipality. License 1567279. This is that P.O.C. This is the one engaging in stalking with Southwest Airlines. This is the one that's engaging in stalking while I'm documenting with Impossible Light inside of the Ovid Family Community Library. This is the one that's engaging in what is harassment, hysterical laughter while gang stalking, and is coming outside to spray in the air and stalk with light. Monitoring demons inside of the parking garage. Sarah Regis is monitoring. They're engaging. This is massive facilitation. This is an ongoing failed ritual. Their ritualistic behaviors is going to result in commitments, and this one's getting commitment. He's getting committed. This is P.O.C. All right, that's the pattern of conduct. That's the entity's ongoing purposes based on what is hostility, because they are being prosecuted, because they are being diagnosed, and they are demons. So you're not dealing with sane people who understand that they should refrain before more trouble comes. You're dealing with demons who are psychopathic, who engage in more. So these are demons that are very much suicidal. They engage in harming themselves, and they also engage in harming others while they harm themselves, such as also the entity that's engaged in this conduct, and everybody's being prosecuted for it. That's the P.O.C. Going out of their way to do so is the entity that is hostile because you are stalking me and I'm prosecuting you for stalking me. Sarah's Regis Group, Metro 102, Downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments, John Stewart Company, Senior Citizen Apartment Complex, and the City of Ontario and Paul Leon is indeed gang stalking after hours while the employees are out, utilizing the resources of the City of Ontario. And access is not the constitutional right or protected right. Access is abused by the entity engaging in public corruption, and it literally doesn't get any more obvious other than the entity engaging in what is psychopathic pacing by helicopter, and a municipality employee at 10:38 at night is coming to engage in the P.O.C. All right, focusing, targeting under that specific environment. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:42 p.m. And here is the evidence that the entity is gang stalking, doing so after 10:30 at night in order to maintain that ongoing ritual. This is the same one that's engaged in hysterical laughter with UPS by plane activity, and they are at this late hour stalking me. That's the city of Ontario. Paul Leon's being federally prosecuted. He's a terrorist. And the entity's doing so in this specific environment. They're mentally ill terrorists. And this is this Ovid Family Community Library where this same African American, he is having the heartiest laughter ever under the fake sun, gang stalk with UPS that's doing a cartwheel over the senior center. And this is where the fake moon is, and he is out at 10:48 at night, gang stalking me. Where the entity engaged in what is that ongoing exposition, which everybody's being prosecuted under, stalking by helicopter, okay? This is mentally ill. This is obsession by the city. The entire city is obsessed while they are gang stalking. Planes, the helicopters literally gassing up their vehicles to come out just to monitor me, and doing so while they've already been, understand the cases are, they're already convicted. It's already over. They're hostile while they are understanding what's going to happen to them based on my prosecuting them. It's already over. So the entity is subject to involuntary commitments. He is absolutely being committed. This is the one that's standing right here, and he's the one that's laughing at the top. He's just having the laugh of his life. He's going to be in a facility laughing like that while he's engaging in what is the inhumane and unlawful act of monitoring another woman at that. He's monitoring a female, and he's stalking a woman also at night with the whole population of government, where there are no takeoffs over at all. UPS, that's not even to a destination. They did a cartwheel. And you know the mentally ill are stalking. This is the blatant criminal activity, and he is showing it to the world. He's showing it to the federal judge that is going to have him committed. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:49. His co-defendant, the one that's stalking me by helicopter, is also going to be committed. The demons that are stalking and doing cartwheels in the planes are going to be committed, and those companies, UPS, the entire company is being federally prosecuted for terrorism. This is P.O.C. at 10:49 p.m.